everybody. A warm welcome to Wisdom from North, the Nordic platform for accelerated inner growth and empowerment. I'm Jannike, and today I'm so excited to be here with Tricia Carr. Tricia is a spiritual teacher. She's an animal telepath. She is a certified hypnotherapist. She's a multidimensional medium. And she's the founder of Charmed Life, the podcast, where she has over 300 episodes. She's also one of our masterclass teachers in Wisdom from North membership, where she has the class Spirit Animals and Nature Magic. And you can read all about her class and the membership in the link below. Now over to Tricia. Hi, Tricia. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful to be here with you, Jannike, and of course, your audience here, this wonderful community that you've been creating and the contribution of your light on our beautiful world. I'm just so grateful to you and excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm excited for our conversation because we're going to speak about magical things, elemental beings, and also the animal kingdom, and really how animals are guardians for us, helping us. And I have always been puzzled about the animal kingdom because to me, humans make sense, extraterrestrials make sense. But animals, I've been wondering about what are animals? And I've been also wondering, do they have their own trajectory in a way? So that means that in their evolution of their soul, they have their path and humans have their path. So that means that I can never incarnate as an animal. Or are we sort of on the same path? Because the law of one material, which is, if you guys haven't heard of it, you need to check it out. It's really profound. This is channel material from the 80s, where this being Ra is communicating, a sixth density being. And they are explaining animals and plants as a second density being that is sort of us in the past. And then we are, as humans, are third density beings. And in your class, you spoke about that actually animals have sort of a closer connection to the energy signature of the divine or something like that. So I'm really excited about hearing your perspective on the animal kingdom, where sort of they fit in to the whole picture.
What a great question. And so, just so educated. And sometimes we do have the curse of education. And I think that's why Dolores Cannon named her books The Convoluted Universe. Because if you start thinking about it from the human perspective, we're like, it gets all confusing.
That's
I
me.
hope. No, but I love it. I love it. And so, I hope to be succinct and helpful in this. And so, if you don't, I'm actually going to be listening a bit. I'm consciously and just letting everyone know I'm calling in Ra, and I'm also calling in Saint Francis because they'll both help me too. So I'll be mostly listening, but if there's a little channeling energy, I'll still be here with you. I'm not going to go into full channeling. So as it concerns the densities. So yes, animals are in the second density. What's important to understand is that the densities have many octaves within them. You may even, from our perspective, of the human perspective, think of these densities in and of themselves like universes from what we could possibly perceive or understand. So an octave inside the second density, as we go in and explore the infinitesimal nature of it, it is endless. And they say that even in our own bodies and our own biology, we can observe this because we can get smaller and smaller. And indeed, we are getting smaller and smaller. We thought at one point that the atom was as small as we could get, but we're getting even smaller and smaller and finding out that just like in the geometry that we learned when we were in grade school or high school or whatever, that a point is infinite and a line is infinite. And this alone can blow the mind. So let's acknowledge that we're talking about limitlessness, yet we're intending to put some structure and form to it so that our human vehicle, which is form, can relate to it. So it's about relating to it rather than in trying to own it with the conscious mind. Conscious mind is limited. Subconscious mind is connected to the limitlessness. So we're going to be bridging that where the conscious mind gets that delicious, ooh, I get it. And then some of the subconscious is like, we don't need to get it. It's wonderful. It's infinite. You know, the hippie part of us. All right. So in the densities, just to break it down a little bit, animals are in nature, well, they span the first through the second, but we're talking about animals in particular. So the wild animals who have very little direct contact with humans would be in the mid and lower octaves of the second density. The domesticated animals are the ones who have more contact with humans. So my cat Kankan, who you may see walking through the frame, he's he's a domesticated animal biologically as well as the way he is living in my home with me, and so he's on the higher end of the second density. The squirrels that are running around in my yard and live in my tree, they're closer, they're higher in the second density than the jaguar who's never seen a human, or the and higher, excuse me, they're higher than the jaguar and maybe lower than my kitty Kankan because he's more domesticated, more in direct contact with animals. So that's the kind of spectrum inside second. Now, the thing to understand is that ascension isn't only about moving higher and that's it. Ascension is about the whole process. Ascension, or the Christhood path, has to do with the spirit becoming physical and physical ascending to spirit again. And so you see the whole cycle is a part of it. As it concerns, as you asked about animals having, I said the animals have a greater access to the divine signature. The reason that is because animals in the second density, they are closer to the Gaiic signature, the soul, the heartbeat, the archangelic frequency of our mother Gaia, who creates our planet, who is the soul of the being of our planet. Being closer to that signature, vibrating more to that signature, Gaia's signature is very close to source energy. So you see, we're kind of going full circle. Since they have a closer signature and connection to the Gaiic signature, then they have a closer signature to the divine or the source energy signature. Think about it. In nature, there is no judgment. There is ecosystem, which is balance, or a give and take, a flow to the areas where everything needs to be served. Ecosystem is nature's way of expressing unity consciousness. It's the same, it's very similar. We humans are right here in the middle going like, I'm trying to do this and we're trying to do this. We are working with that kind of paradoxical energy of being both nature and being divine. And so that's our path as we are being expressed in this third density, third and fourth density, because truly we're in a density sense, really truly in the fourth density. And so far as dimensions are concerned, we're going 3 to 5, of course. That's a whole different Oprah. So that's where we're existing. We're somewhere in between. We would think, oh, well, we're more ascended than the second density, but we're kind of in a tough spot. We're in this paradox. This is why Earth and the walking of the path as an Earth human is one of the greatest schools, because there's a lot of dichotomy in it and therefore a lot of opportunity for learning. Does that make sense? Did I answer some of it?
That was a profound answer. Thank you so much for going into depth with that. I love hearing new perspectives because you're so right. Obviously, we have that left brain approach that we want to understand, and at the same time, we can't really grasp it like fully. But it's interesting nevertheless. I'm curious still, though, can I incarnate as an animal?
Yes, this is also a really great question. And so this is one of the questions that humans may be a little bit unsatisfied about, because when we ask the question, often we are thinking in a certain kind of limited sense, but the asking of the question is actually opening us up to that limitlessness. Here's the deal. The incarnational path, the soul history, if you will, it works upon our memory and our connection to past and parallel and future lives, to what is relevant to the particular point of perspective. So if we, what tends to happen with humans, we usually look at past lives because that's a little easier for our mind to grasp. We're looking at past lives, and we are seeing human past lives. And actually, if we even just look at that, sometimes we'll see, if I'm a woman now, I may see another woman because that happens to be more relevant and helpful to what I am pulling in right now. But of course, we see the opposite gender lives too. With animals, as I'm an animal communicator, and I'm talking about a relevant life that the animal shared with their human, and oftentimes it will be a cat talking about another kind of cat, another feline species. But sometimes it is actually another type of animal, but it usually is an animal, and often it's a similar, it's like in the same species. And that's because it's relevant, it's helpful. It could be like I'm talking to a little Boston Terrier, a little tiny guy, and he talks about a life where he was a wolf. Now it's still in the canine frequency, but it's actually, it's got a lot of difference so that we can see the difference between being a domesticated little guy to a big wild, untamed canine who's large out in the world in a different way. So we see the disparity is helpful and the similarity is helpful. So there's that. That's one reason why we might often see, a similar kind of species as we are reviewing our alternate lives or our parallel lives. I kind of call past lives parallel lives as well, because we're working in the, quantum time space where it's really just however we pattern it, again, just to be helpful, but it's not truly linear. So the soul sort of functions this way as well. When we are creating new lives, energy never goes away. It only reorganizes itself. And even as it reorganizes itself, it still holds memory. An example here would be like we are changing our bodies all the time. In fact, our dermis, our skin, the outer layer of our skin, the most superficial layer of our skin, changes itself over entirely, or on average about every 24 hours. We're sloughing off skin cells and new ones are replacing it. The skin cells that we slough off become the dust of the earth, and they hold memory. They are like recording crystals of us. So we are dropping parts of ourself, our consciousness, our memory, our connection all across all across the world, or at least our environment. And so that part of us has now joined first density and is having that perspective. I still have a connection to it. It is still benefiting my soul. So you see, I now can review a life as a stone, or as a particle, or as a piece of sand on a grand beach, because that's still a part of me. It's still a part of the life that I am leading. How relevant is it? Well, for you and me, we may say, wow, that's very relevant. But for, our typical lives, how is it going to help me to figure out how to get my taxes done? Maybe it's going to be easy, it'd be more beneficial for me to review a frequency of me as a human in another life who was a grand, financier, and therefore it makes my taxes really easy. Same thing for the animal frequencies. And, we are soul energy. And then we look at, besides the physical energies, when I create a loving bond with someone, my soul deposits into your soul and we become a part of one another forever. So Yannicka, you and I are now living co-lives on our time-space continuums. I am a part of your soul because I love you, and you are part of my soul because we love each other. And now at some other point, maybe you review some past life of mine. Again, this is why Dolores Cannon called it the convoluted universe. So our animals they actually are orienting the ones who are in our lives, the ones who are spirit animals, the ones who are showing up in these different ways. They're orienting from maybe oversoul frequencies, like my kitty Con and we are coming from the same, a same oversoul or a co-creative oversoul. He may have, and the way oversouls work too, it's like a matrix in and of itself. So there are frequencies of co-creation between these oversouls, exchanging and co-creating with energy frequencies. So again, as I love my kitty, I could now, through that bond, go in and have a life review as one of his past parallel lives. And it's true because our frequencies are real in their connection and they are part of one another's soul vortex energy forever. Does that make a little bit of sense? Kind of.
That was super interesting. Wow, there's so many ways we can go here. And I
Yeah.
just want to say my camera is jumping a bit. There's been so many technical issues today. I don't know. I'm having a bad technical day. My camera doesn't like me today. So I'm so sorry if the camera is jumping and it's a bit annoying to watch. I don't know what's up with you, Logi. Uh, yes. So let's think about this life, our incarnation. Do each of us have one particular spirit animal guide that works with us?
I think so. So spirit animal guide, as in, well, there's a couple of ways to look at it, and I talk about it in the class Spirit Animals and Nature Magic. We have nature spirit guides, and we are nature, and we need the assistance and remembering that we are nature in the same way we need assistance in remembering that we are spirit, so we have spirit guides, we have ancestor guides, we have angelic guides, and we have interdimensional guides. We need the support in our connection that way, and we also need the support in connection the natural the spirit of nature way. So we have I would say, first of all, if you have animals that you have loved or have loved you, then they are probably in your soul family. I mean, the reason I say probably is if you lived with them in a domesticated sense, if they were your family, they're definitely in your soul family. If you're someone who's never really had animals in your home, but you've had squirrels and you've had birds and who have been inhabiting and living around your environment, then they would also be a part of your spirit animal guides, perhaps a part of your soul family. That's a perhaps there. So yes, we have all kinds of emissaries or guides in spirit, and since we all do need the help of remembering our connection to the that to nature itself, then definitely animals are there to help us, because animals, since they are physical on their Christhood path as well, on that ascension path, and they're we can relate to them. We can relate to animals. Maybe even, again, the relativity is a little closer than, say, fairies, even though we do relate to the fairy realm as well. So animals are great guides. And yes, we all do. And how do you know who they are? Well, take the class and, but just, anyone who comes to mind, any animal who comes to mind, or really I like to say who comes to heart, if you think about it, even if you're like, whoa, I remember this dove one time that kind of like sat on my windsill all the time, from when I was 17, the whole year. That definitely is one of your guides. That animal may be passed now, so it would be more of an ancestral or that kind of a guide who's helping you. So yes, is a short answer is absolutely, because it's a part of our nature as human.
I have never had a dog or a cat. I'm allergic to cats, so I haven't been around much animals. Uh, However, I've had some experiences that I found interesting, and I just thought of one right now. That I was walking into an area with a lot of buildings, and all of a sudden, a cat started following me, and I just got so fascinated by it, and I sat down, and it jumped up here, and I sort of just, and this is not me because I'm allergic to cats, I'm a bit afraid of them. I just let it be there. And it was a moment. It was a really beautiful moment because it just wouldn't go. And I felt it was something special. I get touched when I speak about it because why did it care so much about me? And I wasn't afraid. And we just sat there. He sat there, I was there, and I don't know what it was about. We sat there for like 10 minutes or so. Just,
Wow, that's so
yeah.
beautiful. That's a great example. And so a few things um, show up as you're telling the story. And one is the kind of what we've already been talking about. You have a history with that soul. And so there was this recognition, and animals are, you know, totally open to it, and they don't obsess about it, so it's just like natural and normal. So it was just like, oh, this is the opportunity that we set up in eons, and all of the eons, to be together again and to have that moment. From the cat's perspective, he or she, I'll just say he, just for you know as ease, he, when he recognized you and recognized that there was that quantum appointment that you had set, his his urge and his the love between you two was for him to attune you and for you to attune one another in this, again, this quantum moment. And so that's why, and he came here, which I would say he's working on your throat and he's working on your crown and third eye, all of the higher chakras, but he's also like right here in your high heart. And so he was like, we have to be together to really make the most of this moment that we created with one another. um, so there's just so much there, and it's just so
Wow.
beautiful.
That
Hmm.
was that was beautiful. Thank you for that.
Mm.
Yeah, it just came to mind. And then I had an even bigger thing. In 2012, I stopped doing theater, or I felt that theater, because I'm a former musical theater artist, I felt that that path was not right anymore. And I started with Wisdom from North. I started doing interviews. And then I started seeing jaguars everywhere. It was a jaguar in a car. It was on television. It was on internet. It was on magazines. Even I went to India, and I remember I went into the bathroom, or the toilet, the bathroom, and it said, like, the brand of the bathroom, or I don't know the words for it, but the brand for the, when you take water and everything, was
Mhm.
called Jaguar. And I was like, this is so strange. I just see Jaguar wherever I look. And it lasted for a year, and then it stopped. And it was
Wow.
just like, yeah. And I looked it up online, and it said something about transformation. And that made really sense to me.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you have any perspectives or thoughts about that.
Well, sure. I mean, I can feel into it a little bit. I will say exactly. I mean, that's a fantastic example of spirit animal showing up. Now, since this only lasted about a year, I would say it was a situational spirit animal. However, it's as you are in whatever that spirit animal represents for you, perhaps transformation, you can call upon Jaguar now. So let's say even tomorrow, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to make it through traffic. I mean, that's a kind of transition, right? You can ask Jaguar to help you with that and ask for that support by just calling the image to your mind, bringing the energy of that connection to your heart, and Jaguar can support you. So, what you did was absolutely just right. What I love to do first, I would love for myself or whoever is wondering what's this spirit animal who's showing up, is first feel into it before you go to a resource about it. Feel into it, see what it means to you, clear your mind, and just allow whatever is what could be of great support to you spontaneously or feelingly. Feel toward the image of jaguar or whatever the animal is, and let it communicate to you what it means to you, how it could be helping you. And then, yeah, go to a resource, Google it, go to, I call him Lord Google. Go to Google, look at a book. And if you look at a resource about it, still only keep what resonates, because there's all kinds of, there's a broad spectrum that a jaguar could cover as to how it could be helping. In the same way, you have many talents and you're many different things to different people in your life. So take what resonates and let that enhance what the relationship is. So that's my general, but if you would like, I can feel into it a little bit and see if there's any more information for you specifically. Would you like that?
Of course. Yeah. Why not?
Okay, so they also are saying to pay attention, and I think you were, to the different colors that Jaguar was showing up. If it was showing up as a picture and it was a Jaguar who was maybe cast in all black, then at that time, the transformation energy was saying grounding, Mother Earth nurturing. Other times, like when you saw it on the fixture in the bathroom, it seems like it was probably showing up in silver. And so that's the transformation and reaching to the stars, allowing the cosmos to help you, working with the moon, which is another feminine energy, but working with cycles. So there are different the ways that Jaguar was ministering to you from that grander transformational energy. But they're also showing me walking on the path, continuing to move forward. The Jaguar is very strong, very athletic, very capable. And as the Jaguar moves along the plains, moving to what his destination is, he's patient at it. You know, he has this calm about him. He has this strength and this calm and this certainty. And so those are some of the other offerings that you were being given through that whole year of working with Spirit Animal Jaguar. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so interesting. And I know that you give sessions on this. And so thank you so much for giving me a little
My
tiny session right here. Let's move over to Devas. Devas. Devas? Devas?
Sure. Yeah, I pronounce it Devas, but
Devas.
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it exactly right.
Yeah, because I think in my 400 interviews, it has come across one time, but I never actually got what it was. And I remember I was curious, what is it really? Is it like demigods, like smaller gods? And then you brought it up in the class, in the masterclass. So I would love to hear a bit about these devas, what that is.
Okay, sure. So the devas are the overseers of each of the realms of the elements. And that would be all of the concerns of that particular elemental realm. And when I say elemental realm, we have four elements, physical elements. We have earth, water, fire, air. And so all of the, let's just say earth, all of the concerns of earth, and also all of the spirit beings inside that. So it's like they are, if you, I mean, there isn't really a hierarchy, but there is a structure, an organization. So the overseer, the deva is a word from Sanskrit, and it means enlightened one or something like the illumined one. I think it is illumined one. And so what they are just, you know, they are guides, they're spirit beings. And the elementals themselves, the Devic elementals, for example, the Deva that oversees the element of earth is gnome. And gnomes are composed of just the element of earth, only one single element. So, whereas humans, we're composed of the four physical elements. So they exist on a different frequency that we can connect with and we can see, but we see it with our spiritual eye. Our physical eye is trained to not include information that is not on the physical light spectrum, because our physical eye is trained to filter out everything that is not a physical threat. And that's why we tend to close our physical eyes so that we can see with our third eye, so we're not distracted by the filtering of the physical eyes. It's just what we actually bring in with our physical eyes is a limitation of the information that we can perceive. It's always a limitation. And everything that we actually see, we perceive with our mind. It's actually the mind, or the mind's eye, or the spiritual eye, that sees anything, whether it's filtered or less filtered. So having said that, that's why gnomes are something that we see with our spiritual eye. Now, sometimes we see things that are not on our light spectrum, of the physical light spectrum, seemingly with our eyes open, seemingly with our eyes, but it's still just really our spiritual eye that's seeing it. So having said that, gnomes, who are the overseers of the element of earth, they are beings that exist more. They're in the depths of the second density, but they are mirrored in the fifth density as well. So they kind of have this really expanded expression of themselves. And so they're the overseers, or the governors, or the managers, if you will, of everything that is concerned in the element of earth. And then with water, the overseers or the devas of the element of water are called undines. Sometimes some people call them water sylphs, but undine is the system that we use was actually coined by Paracelsus, and so that's the system that I like to use. The overseers of the element of air, those are called sylphs. And then for the element of fire, those are called salamanders. And so then within each of these elemental realms, of course, we have nature spirits that we call like the Fae realm. And so these fays, fairy sprites, pixies, even brownies, and even more interesting uh, like really low second density or first density spirits that they're again little challenging for us to relate to because they're sort of more one dimensional as compared to us being three dimensional, but they are within our what it is that we are, so we can relate to them if we get ourselves really focused into that kind of energy. Does that answer your question about what the devas are?
Yes, yes. Thank you for elaborating so much. I love this. Fairies. I love fairies and elves, especially elves, actually.
Mhm.
I didn't quite understand where they came into the
Mhm.
picture because they are not the overseers, but they are still in another dimension for them.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, just for the sake of metaphor, think of a company. So, there's the CEO, and that person is kind of in charge of. They have the responsibility of the finances, of the creative direction, and you know what I mean, like of filtering and flowing all that information, and then it's sent down to all of the other parts of the company. So that's the Fae realm. All of the other parts of the company, they are there painting the flowers, their colors. They are there supporting one particular flower. They are there nurturing a tree. They're there working with animals, and the overseers are the ones who are kind of almost really filtering and allowing the energy to be directed. So that's who the Fae realm are. And it is, I mean, as complex as the people of the earth are, it's probably even more complex as to the kinds of beings who are in the Fae realm. I love elves as well. And the elven frequency is so diverse. There are such things as cosmic elves too. So these are interstellar nature frequencies. It's a combination of, and they're sort of bridging the gap between, let's say, the element of earth and the element of Sirius. And they kind of like work with both of those. It's so fascinating how complex it gets. And so yeah, the fairy realm is very magical, very fun, and very much oriented to manifestation. They're right there at the at the pivotal point of things becoming physical. That's their whole job. And that's why they're excited. I mean, isn't that exciting? Ooh, it's about to become physical. That's why I think the fairy realm is so fun and magical and just full of celebration, because it's this climax. It's this beautiful, forward moving energy that they are connected, that they actually are not just connected to, they are.
You have so much knowledge about this. Have you actually seen fairies?
Oh,
Is that where you are receiving this information from, actually seeing these things?
yes, yes, absolutely. Honestly, I'm sure that I have picked up education from other teachers. I definitely wouldn't say that I haven't. Uh, but I do usually dig in on my own before this. That's just the way that I work it, because I don't know if you know human design. I'm a reflector. And so I can very easily be conditioned. So it's better for me to uh, channel directly from sources of the information and experience it. And then often after I'm kind of saturated to a certain point of remembering my own understanding or my own purpose with particular content, then I kind of look at other resources and see. And it's interesting because humans, you know what I mean, like we understand things similarly. I will find it's really fascinating. I'll be like, oh, someone else already wrote about this. That's pretty cool. So yeah, it's my daily. It's yes, I'm it's a part of my whole life and perspective and whatever, purpose, if you want to call it.
And you actually had an experience with a gnome. Is that,
Mhm.
yeah. Would you like to share that?
Yes. So this is an example of how it started to show up to me spontaneously. This was very early on, into my, I guess, my awakening, but I had already started to practice communicating with animals, not professionally yet. I was still in this, I guess, like the apprentice stage. So I was working with, I was, getting people who are my friends, family, colleagues, or whatever, and doing practice sessions with them. And so I was in a development circle, and I did a reading for an animal reading or animal communication session with one of my classmates, you would call it. She had many animals. She had three birds, a tortoise, and a cat. And so the tortoise, his name was Maury, and the I'd never communicated. It was early on, so I didn't have a lot of experience in, consciously or in a structured way communicating with animals. And so my friend was like, well, Maury, my tortoise, he's hibernating. Can you communicate with a hibernating tortoise? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see what happens. And so I, tapped in as we do, and I very clearly got this. Well, hello. Of course I can communicate, from Maury. Of course we can communicate. This is a great time to communicate because this is the time that I do my soul work, was the way that I translated what was coming through from Maury. And he explained his soul work had to do with going and traveling in the realms of spirit and the astral, and almost like being passed over, and like learning and exploring. But then he also had the opportunity to go deep into his hibernating body and experience profound rest. And I'm like, wow, that's a cool thing. So then he was explaining to me, because I was very new to, I didn't know gnomes or fairies or anything at this point. I was, fresh exploring. And he explained to me that process of doing the soul. Oh, actually, let me digress. So then we talked about a past life with Maury and his human, and he showed me the human. She was like a young girl or young lady, and this great stone, like a really large stone. And he said that he was the great stone, and that his companion, the woman, used to go and journal and lie against him, and sometimes she would just like lean against him and feel his vibration, and it was their special spot together. So I'm like, what, we could be stones? Like, what the heck? This was blowing my mind. And he's like, well, of course, and he actually was explaining to me densities, and I didn't know that word. He said, just think of how, we in physical, we have, you can be expressed as a gas, the same element. Let's say water can be expressed as a gas, a liquid, or a solid. So we've got ice, we've got water, we've got steam. That's basically what the soul energy can do as well. So again, he was explaining to me densities. He was explaining to me these things that we've already talked about, what some people call transmigration. And so I was like, wow, my mind was blown. Learned all of this from a hibernating tortoise, connecting with him telepathically. This blow, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't make this up, that kind of thing. And so was my friend. Like, what? That's so cool. Well, the next day, I was meditating as I normally do. And at this time, I was meditating at my tree, against a tree, kind of similar to what he was saying about his human friend leaning against the stone. And as I'm sitting there, very viscerally in my mind's eye, and also feeling like clairsentiently, I feel this little being walk up to me. And in my mind's eye, I see that it is a gnome. And I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, like, I'm just exploring. Sure, it's a gnome. Why not? But it was so like almost physical, not completely physical. And I was just like, I was reaching, I was like, what do you have? Do you have a message for me? And all I got was like a vibration, like an attunement. Again, I didn't have that word, but I got this vibration. And it was like, I couldn't put it into words, but it somehow was answering all of the questions I had at the time. And it just felt so right. And then the next day, and then the next day, 3 days in a row, without me expecting it. I forgot about it and thought it was an anomaly. And on the third day, I said, can I have a name for you so that I can call on you? And the name I got was Henry, with an I, like the French spelling. Okay, great. And then I had to look it up. You know what I mean? And I found out that Paracelsus actually did pen that, this Davic information, that the gnomes oversee the element of earth. Well, wouldn't you know it? Of course, tortoises are. Oh, one of the things that the tortoise had told me, I'm sorry, I digress. Again, one of the things he said, yes, most of the time, yes, I have been a stone, but most of the time I'm one of the animals who are close to the element of earth. And he showed me almost like a flip book, a salamander, a lizard, a snake, and a tortoise. And so he said, because I have a great passion for the element earth. So again, so now in that line, gnome comes up. I find out by doing some research that gnomes oversee the element of earth. I learned about densities. I learned about how we actually maybe can kind of transmigrate, if you want to call it, and what that means. And again, the relevance, it's relevant to him because he is working out a passion for the element of earth. And so he's been salamander, he's been lizard, he's been snake, tortoise, and stone. That's how I get a lot of my learning.
That's amazing. Imagine being you. It must be such a magical life.
Well, yeah, yes, it is, and it's all of us. It's available to all of us, and and while we're talking, around the subject, we do all have Davic guides. Each of us have at least one guide, master guide, who's with us for our whole life from each of the four elements. So each of us has a gnome, a sylph, an undine, and a salamander because we are composed of those elements, and therefore they have charge of overseeing that composition that is us and the way that we're moving about and interacting with the elements in these different ways. And they coordinate the different beings of the Fae realm, the elves, fairies, pixies, all of those who support us in staying in our natural path, which is our spiritual path as well.
Wow, so fascinating. At the end here, can you share a little bit about how you use this in your work, like this knowledge? I mean, this is definitely part of your purpose. I speak a lot about purpose, and this feels so natural to you. And it's also a gift, even though we all have the possibility and the abilities. I think some have a stronger ability. So this is definitely something you are supposed to communicate. So how do you use this knowledge in your work?
Well, some of the ways I would use it, if it's in a one-on-one situation, then if that is that if these topics, whether it's spirit animals or the Davic realm or the Faerie realm or whatever it is, if that is something that benefits the individual, then we will work with that imagery, whether it's in a session that's cognitive or one where I'm channeling or one where I'm actually doing the hypnotherapy, and so we're working with those particular guides or however they may see it in order to move through whatever it is that they are achieving at that time, whatever their goals are, whatever their healing is. And then of course what I primarily do, most of the work I do is teaching. And so I teach classes on this. I'm teaching the class on your platform, and I have an animal communication class, I have an elemental guide class, and those are on demand, and periodically they are also offered live. And so then in my personal life and just my life, I just allow it to show up. I mean, each day is so different because yes, it can get really from one perspective, we think like, wait, where do I turn? I remember thinking that when I was a certain point of development. Do I focus on angels or do I focus on ETs or blah, blah, blah. So whoever is there available working with me at the time, when we kind of get all in our head about that, that's just an invitation to become more present. And so I just see where my intention is to be more and more present, because that's where God is. That's where creation is. The creator point is. And just being open to the element of surprise in absolutely every single moment. And some of the best ways to be surprised is to engage with the nature realm. So that's, I guess, does that answer the question of how I use, I use it?
Beautiful. Thank you so much for such an interesting conversation. I love this. And you just inspired me to open up more to the magic. I love everything magic. And every Christmas there's so many magical films, about these things. And I always think that I wish I could see a real fairy once. Maybe that's not possible now to see them physically, but maybe one day those realms will go more together. I don't know. Maybe we're heading there, that these worlds are going more into each other.
Well, sure. When it become as we are, we were previously on a frequency that we shared where our eyes didn't filter out that light spectrum and our vibrations were more aligned. And we are moving that way now. But just because we have a physical perspective that does limit that doesn't mean that we are not connected to them. We still have just as much. What I think is so beautiful is that they call us to validate ourselves. They call us to be inside our, to go within in order to connect with the without, because that's the truth. The depth of our purpose and the truth and the pristine purity and potential of our being is source energy. And so as they beckon us within to the realm of the subconscious or the imaginal or the spiritual seeing, they're helping us to validate ourselves. We are welcome to validate ourselves in order to be able to know that we are connecting with them. They will not interfere. They will not take away from this reality. It is not diminished or considered lesser. In fact, it is considered brave. It is considered highly a high opportunity for learning and expansion. And so it is validated as well. But we move within in order to experience that whole experience.
That was beautifully put. Thank you so much. And also, thank you so much for your beautiful class, and all the best with all your work, Tricia.
Oh, thank you, Yannicka. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for including me in it. It's just a joy and a pleasure.
And thank you for watching, everybody. And I can highly recommend Tricia's masterclass in Wisdom from North membership. You can read all about it in the link below. And please remember to subscribe to my channel and also to Tricia Carr's channel. I'll link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and much light from the US and Norway. Bye bye.